Okay, that takes you on to item 7.2. It's a report by the Executive Director of Corporate Services on the Plant-Based Treaty Action Plan. Liberal Democrat Group addendum, a Green Group addendum and a Conservative Group amendment have been circulated, and Claire Marion will, Christine Downey will introduce the report.
Claire, let's start with you. Claire Marion.
Nothing to add to the report, but happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Christine?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Marr?
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I just wanted to focus on the welcome news that 66.8% of fruit and veg is Scottish sourced, which is of course very welcome. I'm just curious about the remaining, whatever it is, 33 point something percent that isn't locally sourced, and about its, I suppose, its carbon footprint, depending on where it's come from, knowing that Scotland can't necessarily on its own provide all the fruit and vegetables, for example, at certain times of year that we would want to see as part of a diet. So do we have any information about that remaining 33 point something percent and its carbon footprint?
Claire?
Thanks for your question. So I'm happy to go back to catering services who provided the data to have more information on the remainder. But yeah, we can expect a portion of the rest to come from the rest of the UK and then potentially from Europe. I just wanted to add as well that we know from evidence, from research, that the transport element and the carbon footprint of a product only accounts for about 10% of the total carbon footprint of a produce. So the main impact in terms of carbon emissions really comes from the type of produce and the way it's produced. So it's where it's produced has accounts for less, but we can come back with more details on the origin of the different products.
Thank you. I'd be really interested to see that. I'm sure the rest of the committee would too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you very much for the report as well. I think it's really great, and obviously we were very pleased that we had the endorsement in the first place. But action is what matters. So the fact that we've got a plan here and we've got a lot of concrete things that are actually happening in the council, I think is to be really welcomed. My question really is around governance around the plan. So at 5.2 in the next steps, it mentions that we will report progress on the different actions as part of sustainable food progress reports going forward, which is good. I guess the thing that I'm interested in is that there are some aspects of the action plan which clearly have targets that can be measured very, very easily, but there are other aspects of the action plan which can't be measured so easily. So I'm just wondering what work will be done between now and I guess that first sustainable food update, where we'll have sort of progress monitoring against it to kind of turn some of these actions into specific targets and things that we can measure. Thanks.
Christine?
Thank you, Convener. Maybe just to come back on that, it is quite challenging to put smart, measurable targets against some of the actions, particularly because some of them are external and it's based on goodwill and everyone participating as a partnership. But certainly in the next year, we are also we're looking to bring the food piece of work together, and we'll be coming back in March with a wider piece of food work around sustainable food, but also food poverty. So we will do everything we can to bring back actions and updates, and certainly happy to update as well at the APOG if that's useful for members. And we will try and integrate that into the Good Food Nation Act as well, as that's developed. That has been delayed slightly just because of there's been some delays with the Scottish Government issuing the guidance, but we will try and integrate it so it's one wider food piece so we can actually incorporate this with the wider plans around food.
Councillor Lugard?
Thanks, Convener. Perhaps a theme and sort of take what Councillor Parker has already asked about. So we have a few of the items in the action plan have targets of Q1 2024. Given we are now in Q1 2024, what assurances can you give us that the specific items mentioned are going to have the objective met by the 31st of March? And in addition to that, sort of going further, I can understand why some of the items in the action plan are perhaps, let me describe it in my words, woolly. You wouldn't attach SMART objectives to them, which maybe is a learning point around actions. What assurance can you give us that you will have done all that you can to ensure that the item in the action plan has been achieved, so that when you come back and talk about this again, you can say, actually, we've done it all, it's ongoing, but we've done all the things that we can, so that we know that we're just not talking about something that's going round in circles, and that in 3.5 years' time, we're not asking why something hasn't been done.
Christine.
Thank you, Convener. I would hopefully give members reassurance that everything that's contained within here is something that we're already committed to doing, and actually what the plant-based treaty has enabled us to do is actually pull a lot of those vegetarian and plant-based options together into one piece so that we can actually demonstrate what we are doing. So certainly those actions that are in the first quarter of this year are already things that are planned and underway. We have our Edible Edinburgh food partnership that's already established and has been long running, and through that partnership we have been delivering various initiatives, and we're coming back, as I say, in March with a full update on that, so hopefully that will be able to give members reassurance. This is something that will be incorporated into our plan that we legally have to develop under the Good Food Nation Act that's been passed through Parliament. We are waiting to see how that plan looks and what we actually need to include in that plan, but that will be a statutory obligation on all local authorities, and we will incorporate that there, so we will have a legal requirement to update and provide up feedback to members.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford. Sorry, Claire Manning. Claire, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something in relation to the first part of the question for the actions that are due to be delivered by Q1 of 2024. So just wanted to provide reassurance that we're confident that these will be delivered, because some of them are quite easy and to implement, and some of them are also tied to the Veganuary campaign that is taking place this month, and we already have plans to promote this campaign, and actions are planned to be delivered. So that's why we put a short-term timescale, but we are confident that this will be done on time.
Thank you. Actually, a question around schools and care homes, and if there's any plans to extend the provision of plant-based options there. So that it says that there's it doesn't propose anything specifically. So yeah, is there scope for vegan options in council care homes and extending the sort of meat-free day and vegan options that exist in schools? Thanks.
Christine.
Thank you, Convener. We have engaged with all services on this, and there are obviously some challenges and complexities when people have various complex care needs. At this stage, we didn't feel it was appropriate to include that, but we are continuing to engage with those services to see what we can develop in the future. This can be an evolving plan that we can continue to look at and add actions to. What we have to be very conscious of is that we are always following the Food Standards Scotland's Eat Well guide as well, making sure that people have options and a balanced diet, so very much taking expert advice on that. Thank you.
No more questions, so I'll just move the report. Thank God for the work on this. I think it's a good report. I personally don't think it needs much amendment. Probably don't disagree entirely with the Conservative position that we have other priorities, but I think this does add to one of our priorities about getting to net zero, and the more we can encourage more diversity in our food, the better. So there was consultation with the school estate, I understand, through this process as well, but I'm sure we can do more of that to make sure we are engaging all schools across the city. So I have to move the report. Second, Councillor Maher.
Happy to second, Convener, and I just wanted to add that what I welcome about this report is that it isn't punitive. Having being brought up in a household where you ate everything on your plate, and you ate what you were given and what could be afforded, I think this educational approach, particularly in relation to young people who in many respects are leading the way in all of these issues, are very welcome. So I just wanted to add that I think it's very important that we adopt a supportive and not punitive or judgmental approach to those people for whom, filling their children's bellies is rather more important and than a kind of what am I trying to say? Than adhering to some form of policy. So with those few words, I'd like to second the report and its recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maher. Councillor Dix-Downey.
Thank you, Convener, and I also want to thank officers for this report. And I was interested to read about the University of Edinburgh's initiative to include carbon emissions information for menu choices at some of their main catering outlets, much like you might expect to see calorie information for different menu items. And if we really want to raise awareness about the different emissions impacts of food choices, then we need to think about where we most interact with the public on food choices. Now, as a parent of children at a primary school, every week I, along with thousands of other parents, have to pick my children's school meal choices via the online parent pay system. And it strikes me that this could be a good opportunity to include emissions information and begin to create more awareness of the carbon impact of different meal choices, so that people can make their own informed decisions for their children, or perhaps more importantly, for their own food shopping choices. Because, let's face it, going by my children's preferences, at least there may be some work still to do on making some of the school meat-free options taste as good as the meaty ones, but perhaps that is a discussion for another day. So I would be interested to see options on how we can include this kind of information for school meals and other council catering outlets, and how this information could be provided in a way that actually means something to people. For example, as in the case of the university's approach, comparing it to something like the equivalent emissions of driving a family-sized car for a certain distance, or whatever it might be. As for the governance, on first reading, it wasn't entirely clear to me whether there was an expectation that we would be looking at the action plan again, and I would welcome an opportunity, I think as other people do around this table, to review these actions annually. I'm open to being included as part of another relevant report if that makes more sense, and with that, happy to propose my addendum.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you formally.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a small addendum that we've got. So as others have said, we're very pleased with the action plan and absolutely look forward to its integration with wider food strategies as well. And I think that intersection with food poverty that was mentioned in the questioning, which I think Councillor Maher has covered as well, is really important and really key. And that's been the subject of addendums that we've had on the matter previously as well. I think one thing, though, that we did realise within the action plan at the moment, under that theme of influence and leadership, is that elected members were completely missing from the plan. And because we do have a leadership role in the council, we should be showing leadership on action for climate and nature. We should extend that to championing the treaty as well, instead of just passing the buck on to everybody else and saying, no, that's we support the treaty, but we're not going to personally get involved in that. That doesn't feel satisfactory to us. So on a personal level, I'm not 100% sure we should be catering full council anyway, but that's perhaps another separate conversation we should be having. So for as long as it is going to be catered, let's make sure that we're using that for positive reasons. And the council endorsement of the plant-based treaty is a positive story for climate and nature already. So this is just one minor thing that elected members can do to throw our weight behind the campaign and eat plant-based at one full council meeting a year. It's not that difficult. I think for groups who won't be accepting the addendum, and especially those who endorse the treaty in the first instance, it does feel a little bit like do as I say, not as I do, and that is a little bit disappointing. So I'm hoping that people can throw their weight behind this and join us to celebrate what is a very positive story, I think, in the council and for climate and nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mumford.
Thank you. Formally, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Doggart, sorry.
Yep, you can't tell us apart, Convener. So just to prove that we are indeed fallible and that we don't hold ourselves to any other standard that we hold officers to, can I point out the error in our amendment? which has the core services, public services line. The first services should be omitted. If GME could do that, it makes much more sense when you read it that way. This is a very comprehensive action plan. And I'm glad that we will get the chance to have a look at it again and make sure that the things that are set out in it will actually be done. It's always good to make sure that that happens. I don't honestly think we're in a position where we do need to take an awful lot more action around that, but it's rather a case of monitoring what is being done. The one thing that perhaps concerns me about the other amendments is the omission of the pies, which I know most of us love, would be a great hardship for many of us, highlight of the month, because I certainly don't get a pie at home. So I accept that's a personal decision. On the Lib Dem amendment, the one thing that does concern me is that the report on options and costs would be done via a future business bulletin. I think if there's going to be anything that involves costs, it would need to come back in a formal report. So I think that would be quite important. But given where we are with the plan, given the progress that has been made and the commitment to bringing the plan back to committee for further scrutiny, I'm content with where we are at the moment and move our amendment.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you, Convener. I suspect our amendment isn't going to be approved by committee today, but we did feel it was worth putting something down just so that we could speak and remind committee that we didn't want to sign up to this plant-based treaty proposal in the first place. When I think about it and I think about Scotland's particular position, dairy farming and meat farming are very important in Scotland. And they're relatively low carbon compared with similar in other parts of the world, and very different in many senses when you think of upland sheep farming and things. And I often feel that we in cities don't do enough to understand our rural communities, and that's perhaps part of where this comes from. So we weren't happy with this in the first place, because if we want high quality locally sourced food, then some of that, to get balanced diet, is likely to involve meat and dairy in a country like Scotland with our climate, but there we are. That said, I think it's helpful that the report has drawn together a number of things that were already happening and not put forward to us a big wish list with lots of costs. But there are still costs in doing this, and it is taking up a lot of officer time. And we're very conscious that the council has very little money. And as we've heard in a debate that was hijacked about budget earlier, Scottish Government isn't giving us appropriate resources to do things. And as we'll hear later on, isn't giving us resources to meet net zero targets that are imposed upon us, some by ourselves and some by government. So it's worth highlighting that. It's worth saying the budget isn't available to do huge numbers of things, and we move our amendment. Convener, thank you.
Thank you. Any other contributions? Good. No, thank you. Just quickly, I totally take points. Even there are other industries. I think the report says we will engage with the dairy meat industries, so they're not hugely affected, but I think we also accept we need to move on. Councillor Marr's point earlier on about affordability, I think it's a key point. We may well help educate young people about the need to change their diet, but is it affordable for all? And I think that needs to be a word of discussion. I think the comments from Councillor Dixon-Downey about having informed decisions is really important. I remember meeting with Councillor Young's daughter and Kirkliston, who has her own campaign about Clear Plates campaign. It is about young people saying we need to eat all our food, as you said, Councillor Marr, not believing it. But they, as far as I remember, are throwing away 6 bags of black bags of food, either every day or at least every week, and that's in one school in the city. So there's a lot of food waste happening across the city, and that's because their favourite meal was pizza and chips. It's not the not so tasty vegetarian option or vegan option, so we need to do more in that area. So happy to accept the Lib Dem addendum. We can accept the Conservatives, and on the Greens one, I think the point was made, it needs to be, we should make informed decisions whether you choose to or not. So we can accept your addendum. Sorry. So we'll go to vote.
Okay, before going to the vote, can I just check if either the Greens or Conservatives are accepting any of the other amendments as circulated?
We will accept the Liberal Democrat.
Thanks. And in that case, so I think we have three positions. We have motion moved by Councillor Day, seconded by Councillor Marr, which agrees the recommendations in the report and accepts the Liberal Democrat group addendum. Amendment 1 is the Green Amendment, which is moved by Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Mumford, which is as circulated, and also accepts the Liberal Democrat group addendum. And Amendment 2 is the Conservative Group amendment, which moved by Councillor Doggart, seconded by Councillor White, which is as circulated with a small verbal adjustment. Could I take the votes firstly for the Conservative Group amendment, Amendment 2? Thank you, that's 2. For the Green Group amendment with the Liberal Democrat Group addendum. Give me a moment just while I wait for members online. There it is. Thank you, that's 8. And for the motion, please. Because some McInnes, I assume that's a legacy hand. I think we will take that as a legacy hand because it was up before. So that's 7. There is no over. Thanks, Councillor McGuinness, that's fine, thanks. There is no overall majority, so we'll move to a second round of voting. The Conservative amendment falls, so we have two positions now. Motion, which is the administration motion, accepting the Liberal Democrat Group addendum, and against that is the Green amendment. So motion and amendment. Could I take the votes for the Green amendment, please? Thank you, that's 8. And for the motion, please. That's 9. The motion is carried.